Awesome Action Fest podcast. We focus on filmmaking from idea to distribution and everything in between. We focus on you getting your project in the can and for the world to see. Thank you for listening to the Awesome Action Fest podcast. Now let's get cracking.
Good afternoon and welcome back to the Austin Action Fest and Market podcast. I'm your host, Benjamin Nathaniel Reddick II, aka The Violence Conductor. Today I have with me Danielle Cavanis Weatherford, aka The Golden Child. Say hi, Danielle.
Hello.
And our esteemed guest from Film Reframed, Roman. Let's cheer and clap for Roman. So please welcome. It's the crowd's wild adulation. So tell us a little about yourself, Roman.
Hey, so I'm Roman Suela Martinez, and I'm the founder of Film Reframed. I'm a storyboard artist and a film director, and I'm here to help filmmakers around the world learn how composition and visual storytelling can improve their films.
Awesome. So where did we meet at again? Was that AFM or South by Southwest?
South by Southwest. Yeah, my partner and I attended South by, got the poster rolled up in a tube here next to me, getting ready to get it framed. Some pretty cool graphic design this year. But yeah, the digital festival.
I'm digging what's behind you, by the way. I love what's on your...
Oh, yeah, check it out. We got my records on my wall here. A bit far away from me, but
that.
You can see some classics. We got a lot of good ones.
I need to do that. Thank you for doing that, because now you gave me an idea, because I have all these old records sitting over here, and I want to...
I have a couple as well. I have a bunch of old records. I didn't think about that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, we got everything very highly curated over here, but one of the best ones right over my shoulder right here. This is Jennifer Holiday hanging out.
Okay.
Right,
and I am telling you. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to drop some little things in there.
That's awesome. So I'm curious about just about South by Southwest in general. Was that I don't know if you want to, if you can't say anything, just say plead the fifth, because I'm gonna ask you real questions. Was it beneficial, do you think, for you guys to attend? Because a lot of people we know didn't go to South by Southwest, and when they do go, they're just there to party. So as a person who went for business, I'd like to hear your take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's so many reasons why it is incredibly beneficial. At least I think it all depends on your mindset going in and what you're looking to do. Because I would say that all the people that go to, as you're saying, go party there as well, it's also beneficial for them. They're getting to go have a great time and party and make connections in that way. But it's almost like a choose your own adventure of what you want to do with your time there, how you want to connect. For instance, my partner and I, since we're here with Film Reframed and looking to educate filmmakers, we spend a lot of time looking to connect with people who might see benefit from that. And we listen to a lot of the educational talks, basically what would be the keynotes on a normal year at South by. I spent a lot of time digging into that stuff and seeing the film content that we knew wouldn't be released in a widespread capacity on streaming later on. So there were some, I know a lot of people like to go and see the big premiere thing before everybody else sees it, particularly like film critics or journalists. But for us, it was more about seeing the little stuff that we knew if we didn't dedicate that time to doing it during South by, that's the stuff that would fall off our radar, and we might miss some really talented new people, or we might not, get tuned into a concept that's brand new. So we were there for the innovation side of it, and it went really well for us.
Got it. No, that's actually what kind of opened my eyes. Was South by Southwest was the first real film festival I attended that was, had some weight to it. And I tell this story a lot, but I was going to actually see Charlize Theron's Atomic Blonde because she was there, and I was like, oh, it's going to be a cool event. And I was doing film reviews at the time, which I still do on occasion. I'll get to that later. I still do film reviews. And so I was like, all right, cool. I'll get an advanced screening of that, talk about it. It'd be cool. There was no way I was getting that event. It was the line was around the building. There just was no way I was going to get to see it. And I was like, all right, well, that's cool. I'm a little bummed. What else is there to do that's film related? And right next door was a producers roundtable, and it had 3 legitimate, like an HBO producer, somebody else from some other documentary, and then the guy who did East Los High. There's like 3 legit producers. You're 7 people per table, and there was only 1 slot left. So it was just meant to be. So I went in there and I was like, it just struck me that there's probably a bunch of filmmakers that are across the street watching Charlize Theron on screen on a movie that's going to come out in 2 or 3 months. Most of them are not film reviewers. So maybe they'll do a cool post, but they're not going to do a review that's going to make them any money. And I was like, I shouldn't have even wanted to go to that. I should have wanted to come here because I'm a filmmaker. So that's cool. That movie was a lot of fun, but there's money in this room and my career advancements in this room. And I didn't even realize South by Southwest had that. Before, when I was going, I thought it was listen to cool music, watch some cool movies, and call it a day. And I didn't even look at it from the business building aspect. So we try to let everybody know that the screenings are great, but there's a lot of cool people, i.e. yourself, that you can meet if you take some time to really kind of dig into that kind of stuff. So
yeah, there's an interesting duality being a filmmaker or a creative person, which is that you are likely in the industry you're in because you appreciate the work that's made. So like you love movies, you love Charlize Theron's acting, you love the fight choreographer for Atomic Blonde. So you're like, I want to go appreciate this thing that I love, which is what got you here in the first place. But as a creator as well, you have to balance that with the side of yourself that is saying, okay, what do I do to be the one who's making that versus the one who's enjoying it? And it's pretty hard to, sometimes define the line between those things, So I understand. I get the challenge. It's tough, but
absolutely.
Yeah, I hear you.
Absolutely. So
I was a backup singer. I was a backup singer for a band at South by Southwest many, many years ago when it first was really in the music side. The film sub is not out, just to let you know. Yeah, it's a little tidbit of.
That's cool. What was the band?
The band's know what. I was actually the manager of the person, and she needed a backup singer. And so at the time, we had 2 friends step in to back up because South by Southwest was new, really, around that time. So I'm not going to date myself.
Man, that's a dedicated manager, though.
It was a blast.
So much. It's like, I'm getting on stage too.
Oh man,
it was a blast. So yeah,
that's cool. I mean, if you got the skills, man, go for it.
You gotta step in where you're needed. That's that superhero cape flying in the background. Anyway,
and you never know when the big break's coming. So
you never know.
Boom,
yeah, exactly.
But so how did you actually get into the business of show business? Like, what drew you to it?
Yeah, well, since I was 2 years old, I was drawing pictures, and I always wanted to draw and become an artist. That's what I was all about for, speaking of like understanding your purpose or knowing your focus for my young adult life. All I would do is draw all day, every day, go through tons of sketchbooks, end up with piles of papers in my room. And
what were you drawing, by the way? Just really curious.
Oh yeah, all kinds of stuff. I really am interested in, mythology. And when I was a kid, reading the Greek myths was really impactful for me, and seeing like all the visual stuff that would come out with, there was Pokemon on television, and there were magic cards, and they have these crazy illustrations on them. And so you just see all these things, and you take from anything from like, watching the Mummy movie plus Pikachu plus, Greek hero Hercules or something, put them together. I was always drawing fantastical beasts and, heroic macho guys, but never the hands, because hands are really hard to draw when you're young. Hands are the most difficult thing. Yeah. So you always hide them behind like a big shield, or, like if they're holding a sword, you can just draw a fist, which is a lot easier because it's just a, little circle. But yeah, so I'd be doing that stuff all the time. And when I got into high school, I started learning more about film. I had always seen film as kind of this completely, it never even crossed my mind as something attainable to be part of. They seemed like magic things that would happen, far away. I mean, it really hadn't crossed my mind at all. But then I had seen some Robert Rodriguez movies, and he is especially earlier in his career, is incredibly vocal about like helping young filmmakers and getting people inspired to make things. And so I read his production diaries, which is called Rebel Without a Crew.
Mm-hmm.
And so it appealed to me because, being in high school and being a young Latino guy and trying to figure out what I'm doing, seeing Robert Rodriguez looking kind of cool and interesting with this bandana, and he's Texas, that's his deal, so he's there with you guys. And anyway, I read his book, and it seemed achievable. It's like, oh, it's not that hard. Like, he just got in a wheelchair and had a camera, and he had a guy pull him on the wheelchair, and that was his dolly shot. It's like, oh, there are levels between me in high school doing nothing and high level producers in Hollywood with big effects. So once I kind of got my head wrapped around that idea, my dad got me a little JVC tape, handy cam, to maybe try it out and start filming some things. And from there, I just completely fell in love with it. And I realized that all the stories I wanted to tell as an artist, as a graphic novelist that I wanted to become, that I could make them even more real and fully fleshed out, and they could have music and they could have performances, and I realized that it was just a logical next step from what I was already doing as a cartoonist at that time.
That is
can I ask you a question? I have a quick question with that one. So at that age, you're dreaming, and some people feel that they run up against an obstacle, and that's their own mind. Did you feel like, wow, that's out there, I don't know if I could ever do that? Or did you just say, wow, this is cool, I think I can create, I want to create, I don't have anything that's impeding my dreams or my ambitions? Did you just like go for it?
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't have been so able to pursue those ideas and my desires to be creative if it weren't for people giving me positive reinforcement or being willing to jump on a project when I said, oh, I have this crazy idea. If that was met with, crickets in the room, then I probably would have felt a lot more self-conscious. Like, I don't want to attribute it to my particular like fortitude or self-esteem or whatever. What it was is I would be with my friends and I'd say, hey, I'm kind of thinking I want to do this movie idea. And my friend would go, I want to be in it. Like, how, like I'd be perfect, so it was just, all it takes is somebody else to confirm that, you just need one other person to go, my partner at Film Reframed, she always talks about this idea of the first follower. So there's like a brilliant mind. You think of like Steve Jobs or whatever, Einstein, whatever it is. You have a person who has a vision, they have an idea, and they want to do something with it. But the ball doesn't get rolling until you have the first person who steps up with you and, believes in you before everything's put together, before you've got the whole thing worked out in a way that it's obvious that everybody should start, in this metaphor, buying an iPod or something. Before that happens, you need somebody to jump in and kind of look ridiculous with you at the beginning so that you can start building something serious. And so for me, that was my friend Adam in high school, and he was my first actor in the little short film we shot, which was the premise was I had been reading Don Quixote, and I was really inspired by the idea that there's a person who is imagining an entire reality around them, but to the rest of the world, he just looks like a crazy old man. So I wanted to do that with my friend in high school as the lead, as a kid who's just moved to a new city. And when he goes out to buy milk at the new grocery store alone, he has to walk down to the grocery store. He starts seeing all of these fantastical things like cowboys with guns and you know, seeing himself framed as like a James Bond type character or something. He imagines all of these realities on his way to the grocery store. And then you get to see what it looks like in his head versus what it looks like in real life. So he
I
steps
love
out his
that.
door and
So it's
sees the cowboy, and then he cut back to the cowboy. It's actually a little kid with a squirt gun who squirts him in the chest and he
Oh, that's
runs away.
cute. I
Stuff
like
like that.
that.
what was the
Oh.
name of that?
I called it Dawn, you know, not so subtle reference. Dawn,
No, I
like
would
James Donald, you know.
because in my head I was thinking like Donnie Quicks or something like that, or Donnie Quick or something. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking in my head. No, that's actually really funny because a ton of what you said is the same as as it was for me. I just didn't make the connection between the art and film. But when I was a kid, I did nothing but read comic books. I watched anime. I played video games, and I drew constantly. I thought I was going to be an artist when I grew up. So I was constantly sketching. I still have sketches all over the place right now. Like we're doing a fantasy project, and I had drawn those characters like 4 or 5 years ago. And I did like basically a comic book version of, I know there's a difference between a comic book and a storyboard. So it's a comic book version of one of the short stories I want to tell. Like it's all sketched out. So it was just funny hearing you say, I was like, man, I remember that's all I did all through high school. While I was working, I had a textbook on one side and a sketch pad on the other side. And the whole time they were talking, the pencil was going. So that's interesting.
Yeah, that's great to hear that. And I just want to totally validate that, you know, you're saying you were doing comic books and then you made that comment, well, oh, it's different than storyboards. But, you know, as a professional storyboard artist, first of all, they're not that different.
Really?
And second of all, you know, if you think of the recent, you know, Parasite, I don't know if you've seen the movie Parasite, but they released the storyboards from the film in graphic novel form for that movie. And when you look at his storyboards, they're not, you know, not everything is exactly like what you might consider like industry standard storyboard format. He draws it like a graphic novel. That's why they're able to make it that book like that, because they're clearly drawings from, oh, he has a thought, let me get that down, you know, from different points in time in his, you know, creation process. And you see that they end up looking really similar. So
interesting.
That's exactly what he did through the whole story.
You know?
That's what he did through the whole story.
Yeah, because I did see the storyboards from that. It's interesting that you say that, because I literally had a guy, we had a conversation about this, and they were saying the opposite of that. They're like, oh, well, it's different. It's got to be this. And I don't know. They're asking me, I was like, I don't do storyboards. And like, we need a storyboard for a VFX. And I was like, well, I don't have time to learn how to do it, because it sounds like they wanted something very specific. And they probably, since they were doing VFX, wanted like the industry standard to show like a workflow. And I was like, well, I don't have time for that. So if this sketch does not work for you of what I have in my mind, we're going to have to go another route. So it's just really interesting to hear you say what you said. So
you know,
yeah, I think
innovation happens though. You know, I was listening to Stephen Bernstein yesterday, and he did Lawrence of Arabia. He was the cinematographer, a whole bunch of other stuff that he's done, Godfather, stuff like that. And he was talking about a lot of the things that he did were not industry standard. You know, he's using pantyhose over certain over his cameras, you know, to do certain effects, just all these different things, and blurring things and music videos and stuff like that became standard later on, but not when he was, you know, being very creative just because he wanted to try something different and get a certain effect out of it. So, you know, if you get the story right a certain way, you know, people call you a legend later on. So
yeah, and you know, I think that's a great point. It's very interesting because it sounds like Benjamin, to what you're saying is, you know, maybe they have these particular needs of technical specifications to translate the drawings to visual effects team. But those kinds of particularities are things that you can learn by working with that team. You don't need to be this, you don't need to have it all figured out before you get in there. In fact, so many of the jobs that I've had, you can learn those particulars on site. You learn how, I mean, even in a non-creative business, if you go from one, even let's say one accounting job to another, you may have a head of your department who likes the spreadsheets a certain way that's different from the way that your previous boss did. And those little details are the things that you can learn when you're involved on the project. And that's something you can pick up quickly, but it's the essential things. It's the storytelling, you know, that you learn. It's the way that your process helps develop your visual ideas. Those are the things you bring to the table. And then those little details that we consider like the standard, or, oh, you got to use this form instead of this one, or use this program. That's stuff you pick up while you're there. So, I mean, even just thinking of, you know, if I was, because I like to do this going into it thinking, if I was 15 years younger, what would I want to hear somebody say who's in that position? What would I want to know? And for me, it's like, you learn the details of the job by doing it with somebody. The details, the particulars of filmmaking, you're going to learn that by doing it. But the essential things, the things that are, I mean, you wouldn't even consider them to be exclusive to filmmaking. That's the stuff that you develop and practice personally on your own. So it's all about coming in with that foundation for yourself, and then knowing that you can learn. And I wish other people would know that too. You know, when we talk about a business that's full of producers and investors who, for good reason, are risk averse with their capital, trying to fund things. I hope that the people that are in those roles have a good eye for people and can see where somebody can grow into the skill set they need and quickly, or, you know, even just basically see what it is that people are good at and then put them in a role where it will allow them to develop that and flourish. Because we have a lot of, you know, that's the reason you see the same names in the credits all the time on the big movies, is because you have a trusted group of people, and it doesn't take a lot of insight to know they can do the job, right? You don't have to intuit that they're good because it's there. But yeah, I look to people for their potential, right?
No, that makes sense. And it's funny you mentioned accounting, because our other business, my wife has an accountancy business, and that's part of the thing, is she has to hire new accountants who may be independent, and they may have their own system of doing things. And there's like the how does she word it? The standard accepted rules of accounting practices, which is what everybody does. But then there's like her way of maybe nomenclature, like naming files or doing whatever with the clients, the needs audit or whatever. So absolutely, totally on board, understand exactly what you're saying. So to get into some more stuff about you guys, like, how does Film Reframed help people create a better experience for the viewer? Like, what do you do that makes someone's project better?
Well, for us, we identified very quickly, very early on when we started teaching, that the idea of storytelling through visual medium and the idea of composing shots with intention is something that's very under instructed in film school. The more we talked to people, the more we learned that maybe they had one or two classes on it, not even a full course, but like 1 or 2 days where people would talk about composition and move on. Some people had no experience. It was all film theory. And then it was just, how fast can you get your hands on the camera? And for other people, even in a professional environment where they've gone beyond film school and been working on professional sets, the people who do their job very well don't have a way of articulating what it is that they're doing well. You know, so the DP may be able to say, okay, let's figure this out, put this here, go here, and then everything comes together and it's beautiful and it works great. But in terms of explaining and teaching that to somebody else, it's something that they don't have the language for. And so for us, you know, I went to illustration school to learn storyboarding so that I could visually communicate my ideas as a director. And going through that training, I learned how to tell a full story in one image, right? Illustrators, if you think of people illustrating storybooks, or if you think of editorial illustrators back in the day, if they'd have to tell a whole, pages worth of a book, you'd have to tell that whole story in one picture. So the techniques that you learn to do that are something that you can carry with you into the film world. If you have all of these images in the film world, imagine what will, what can happen in your movie if every shot that you choose has as much storytelling packed into it as one illustration in a book, right? You could tell an immensely more nuanced and complex story through those techniques. And so for me, coming up through storyboarding and illustration, and then landing in film and understanding how images tell a narrative over the span of 2 hours, right, in a movie, combining those forces really allowed me to have a particular way of explaining things that resonates with filmmakers. And so it's no longer information that's just reserved for cartoonists or illustrators. It's information that's transferable through, the lens of my experience working on both to filmmakers. And what that does for the viewers is, you can watch a movie, and if you compose the shots with intention, you almost don't even need to be able to hear the dialogue. You can go through the whole film and understand what the characters think, feel, do, what their trajectory is, the symbolism and the thematic meaning of the piece could all be told strictly through the visuals. And as you know, that's where film started is, we didn't have sound in film for many years. And so the reliance of the early movies on visual storytelling was something that was very noticeable and prevalent in early movies. And you start to see filmmakers drift away from that and rely on other aspects of their craft, when they got more options available. But that doesn't mean we have to lose the amount of nuance that we had early on.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a couple different things that you kind of addressed. What are the three main mistakes that you see when you watch films nowadays?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So what are like three of the main things that you see that you don't think people are doing correctly, or that you don't like, or you think people can do better that you're seeing in films nowadays?
Well, I think that when you approach something as impactful as a film, when you approach something that has hundreds of people involved, or even just 20 people involved, depending on the size of your film, but you approach something that has that many people, that much time, that much effort, that much money, when you approach something like that, you need to do it with intentionality. And often I think there are many aspects of storytelling that filmmakers could figure out ahead of time and strategize and plan for in the storytelling, not even just the production, but within the storytelling of it, that would allow the film to transcend entertainment and become something that's of, an even deeper value to the culture and a deeper value to, humanity as a whole. And so I know that sounds a little bit, big, but you think of something as simple as, Jordan Peele and his career that he's had, but you think of Get Out, and you think of how it is at its core a thriller. It's a horror movie, and it showcases all the genre aspects of what that is and tropes. So it's not necessarily doing anything to completely reinvent the wheel, but because Jordan and his team imbued it with so much thoughtful intention in the way that the shots were composed, in the subtext and the meaning of what the horror on screen, what that meant for them personally and what that might mean to culture at large, they were able to make a piece of art that, completely overperformed in the theater, and people still talk about. It's been years. People still talk about it like it just came out, that kind of thing. That's the difference. That's what takes your work from, just another genre horror movie to cultural phenomenon and something that matters to people and that they identify with. So, to your earlier question of, what do we do at Film Reframed that helps make the experience for the audience better? With the techniques that we teach, we're looking to take you from, a genre horror film that nobody remembers to a genre horror film that leaves a lasting impression on people.
So when you say rethink film school, I know there's all these different things in film school you have to do. I didn't go to film school, by the way. So what's different in your feeling about that experience versus your experience, or a combination thereof?
Right. So I think that the foundation of storytelling starts beyond the medium of film. So even though we work in film and that's what we're trying to, at the end of the day, we're trying to tangibly make a film, what you're trying to communicate, why you're trying to do it, who you're trying to do it with, those ideas start before you pick up the camera. Those ideas start before you even decide you're going to be a filmmaker. How many filmmakers have you heard the story that they were something else first? I have a friend who was an engineer and then found his footing in film. But the idea behind what we do at Film Reframed is when you can clarify your intentions and clarify what you're bringing to the table, why you want to do this, and then how you want to express that. The technical aspects of the job, how to set the aperture on the camera, whatever it may be, those technical aspects are something that you can leverage the knowledge of your team to use. So if you're coming to Film Reframed, you're likely a director or a actor or a cinematographer, somebody who's working in maybe the creative aspect of film, and that all of the great auteur directors over time, they all relied on the technical knowledge of their team and their crew, to get their ideas onto the page. But if you have a very technically accomplished crew, but you have a director who doesn't understand the intention of why they're approaching the material the way they are, then that's when you end up with just more noise in movies and not the actual film that you wanted to make. So for us, we thought rethink film school because we've heard so many people say, like, for instance, I'll say we had a student testimonial who said, I went through 6 years of filmmaking education. I got my master's in film, and I learned more about cinematic storytelling in 1 month at Film Reframed, just doing one class a week for an hour and a half, than I did in the entire time that I was in film school. And I think that's because, not to say that aren't quality instructors or that they're not teaching quality material in film school, but that is to say that this particular niche of instruction, visual storytelling, is something that they don't even touch. It's something that they don't even designate a space for. And to me, we thought that seems like an incredible oversight. And for that to be so prevalent across the entire nation and other countries in their film education programs, this just seemed like, well, we have to take up this mantle and this mission to show people how intentional choices in your composition change the way that your images affect people. Got it. And so that's why we ask you to rethink it, right? So go back to the beginning and see what is it that you're trying to learn when you go to film school? Are you trying to learn the cameras? That's great. That's good. But are you trying to learn the visual storytelling? If so, maybe consider, that might not be where you'll find that information.
Wow. Okay. So, since it's May we're in the 7th right now? 7th, right? 6th? 6th. It's bad. The pandemic has ruined. I never know what day of the week it is. Was yeah, I never know. Well, on that note,
you just have to stick with the May the 4th be with you.
Well, that's kind of the reason I'm asking the question. Did Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, did they make any of these mistakes that you're talking about, or people just hate that movie for a completely different reason?
Oh man, that's really funny. So you can't answer that question without talking about the entire, this is going to be a multi-part response. Okay, so get ready, and just remember through this that you asked. So what I'll say is, Ben, to our earlier part of our conversation, talking about being inspired and drawing all the time as kids and being inspired by this visual content. Nothing was more inspiring than Star Wars for visuals as a kid. You look at Darth Vader's mask and you know that that's based on samurai, armor. And you're learning, as a kid, you watch Star Wars and you don't know that you're learning about ancient Japanese art and culture by looking at Darth Vader's mask, right? You just don't know that these things are happening. But I say that to say, look how much intentionality went into the first Star Wars movies, whether you think that they are particularly subtle or nuanced or whatever. I mean, they're pulp storytelling, right? So they don't necessarily have to be Oscar performances, but look at how much they cared. Look how much they put into it. Look at the this manifestation of all of this very purposeful and thoughtful design. And I think you see that, it's not a controversial opinion to say you see that at its height during the second Star Wars movie, right? That all of that that's the apex of Star Wars. And its creative force. But what you see later on, and what I noticed here is with the new Star Wars film, with the Rise of the Skywalker, is it started to lose an understanding of what it wanted to communicate and say. There are a lot of ideas going on in the film. I since I wasn't involved with it, I can't pinpoint where that comes from, but I know that a lot of people will tell you, okay, well, there's a lot of producer oversight and there's a lot of pressure for this to be a legacy thing that also sells a lot of product on the other side. And there's a lot of, you bring big movie stars into the picture and they have their opinions of what they want it to be, or you have your directors who they maybe don't trust as much to get it right, so they get in there. But all this is to say, when you have the original Star Wars movies, you have a guy whose passion was just out of control and he just put everything into what he was doing. George Lucas making these, just doing it all from his vision. And now you have something that has many, many, many visions involved. And I think what happens when that happens is you lose clarity. So what you would need in a case like this is you would need the vision and clarity of somebody who can synthesize the enormous amount of input and ideas that's coming into him from all sides, him or her, and somebody who could synthesize that and say, this is the core of what we're talking about. Pick one theme from Rise of the Skywalker. You could pick the connection between the hero and the antagonist. You pick their unspoken connection. That could be the theme, or you can pick the theme of what happened to Poe. You know what I mean? What was the arc there? And we've heard even Daniel Boyega. His name? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard him say even publicly that that the film franchise lost an understanding of what to do with his character. They put him in there and then they didn't resolve his arc in any really meaningful way. And what that says to me is that they didn't understand what themes they were trying to express or stories they were trying to tell, because any character you have in your story, you can create a trajectory for them that reflects the theme and your intention. Characters will react in accordance with what's true to them and what they believe in, but you can control the events that happen to that character. So, in the narrative, I think they just lost track of what they wanted to express, and that leaves the door open for just a mishmash of ideas. So it doesn't matter how beautiful some of the shots are, or how great some of the production design is, or even how good some of the performances are in key moments. If they don't amount to something more than themselves, then the movie just kind of goes through you. And I got to say, when I watched it the first time, I forgot almost everything that happened a few days later, which is very uncommon for me because I love movies. I love them so much and I think about them all the time, but it went right through me. And then, just to know that that is because it's not grounded in anything, it frustrates me.
I had the opposite response watching that movie. I remembered everything and I was upset to a great extent because you can't see it. There's 2 lightsabers up there. We just got done doing a May the 4th performance. And so I studied lightsaber combat, and there's the 7 different forms and the crate dragon and Anakin Skywalker's form 5 and all this stuff. And you're like, again, attention to detail. And when you watch those guys train, like Ewan McGregor, wow, and Hayden Christensen, when you watch their training, like they were training. And then when you see the new one, you're like, do you guys care that the fact that kids are going to want to go out and emulate this and somebody's going to like study this movie to do fighting from it? You just don't care. No, we're just going to swing things around and add new moves that no one's ever had since ever in Star Wars. I was like, this is amazing. So I was actually really offended by the movie. I'm not to say that I didn't enjoy parts of it, but like knowing the source that they were pulling from and what it could have been. I'm like, we don't even talk about Sith sorcery anymore. We just never. No, we don't care. I'm like, Star Wars is so thick with lore and information, and so many other people through the books and things have taken such great painstaking care to build that up, that when you see the movie, you're like, hey guys, you guys got a ton of stuff to pull from here. Why are you acting like none of it matters? It's just a weird choice to me to dodge. And I literally just watched a video from A Closer Look. They do film essays or looks at stuff as well. He was talking about Avengers Endgame. And I don't know how you felt about that one, but it was kind of very along the lines of what you just said. He said, there's a ton of spectacle here, but there is no story being told. It's all heroic. It's all the heroes, the music, everything is about the heroes just dominating, Thanos, etc. He's like, there's no stakes. There's nothing here that makes they're never in danger. It's never like your heart isn't pumping. He's like, and he actually broke down 2 or 3 different ways. He said that you could have added more stakes to that final event. Because I remember watching even that one and going, this isn't even better than the fight at the airport in Civil War. I like that fight better than I liked Endgame's final fight, or like the people who got killed off screen. It's just like, did you guys just?
Yeah, they
what
left
was the
out a whole
point?
lot. They left out. Yeah, they left out. It was everywhere. And I got lost with Star Wars when the little teddy bears came in, and I call them teddy bears. And then Jar Jar Binks. To me, those when I started seeing that when I was younger, I just went. I checked out. And then when the new ones came, I was just kind of I don't know, and I really wasn't bought into the story until the cartoons came. That's what brought me back in, because I love the bad ones, the bad boy part of them that just came out on the 4th. Those are I'm all about the cartoons. They've lost me in the other ones because exactly what you guys are talking about. There's too much going on. And with the cartoons, they're singular because they have the series. They can build off of those, and it keeps me excited. And it's just, I like animation.
I got in because of Darth Maul, to be honest with you. And before that, I wasn't huge into Star Wars. And then I saw Darth Maul and I was like, this dude's dope. This is Star Wars? Okay. I'm in now. Because by the time I had seen Star Wars and all these other, older movies, I like the originals, I was already watching Kung Fu movies and like Ninja Scroll and stuff. So like my idea of action was well beyond that. Vader.
Yeah.
I was not
you talk about, composition to some degree with, you talked about a lot, but when I was younger, I was a competitive gymnast, and I was also a dancer. And so I would take those and watch karate movies, kung fu. I was big into martial arts every weekend, watching martial arts, and that's what I wanted to be, the dancing, the dancing martial artist,
Some of them were.
acrobat person,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I noticed that I didn't quite know it till now what I was doing, but I was watching musicals all the time. Is what I'd watch
Mm.
as well, and I would watch uh, Singing in the Rain, for example. And there's a lot of movement in Singing in the Rain. And I'm a huge movement person. I could take
Mhm.
the whole story, and you've got me hooked. And so I didn't know that's what to me pretty much was happening a lot of times in their story. And I just love the coloring and the layering of the colors in a lot of those movies. I
Mhm.
think I'm freezing on
Mhm.
you. Am I freezing on you
A
guys?
little bit. You got back to it though.
Okay.
No, that's
So I didn't start really paying attention to a lot of that stuff until I got older. Star Wars hooked me in with a lot of the stuff that they did. But yeah, my love of movement is huge to me.
Yeah, that's
So
really, man, I love hearing you say that, and both of you guys. The overlap, the significant overlap in choreographed dance and movement and musicals, and in kung fu and martial arts and action films. These, there is a considerable amount of overlap, and sometimes you watch some of the old kung fu movies and you realize that the choreography is more a dance than it is an
Mhm.
actual, fight. That there are
yes.
people who,
Yes.
you even think of Jackie Chan being trained in the, Chinese opera and those kinds of more performative acrobatic things that leads into his career as a film martial artist. Um, not everybody has to come up the way that like Bruce Lee did, being like a champion fighter. You don't have to start from that point. There's so much, and especially for film, everything is a performance, right? So like performative dance that isn't in for that. And man, you put kung fu movies and musicals side by side, and you see overlap in colors, as you said. You see
Yeah.
it in staging. You see it in
Yeah.
you can know moments when somebody in an action movie is going to die based on how the choreography of the movement is set up 5 minutes earlier or 10 scenes earlier. You can understand because there's a language built into it, just like in musicals, when
Yeah.
someone's falling in love with the way they, you know, the
And
way
then
they
black
move.
and white, that's a whole other, feeling and connection that you get, Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
only watched one black and white movie that I like. I think that was Cyrano de Bergerac. And have you ever seen that? It's like
I have not.
it's like a
I think I
French,
might have seen that. Yeah.
it's like a romance type of movie. He's an unattractive guy, but he's a
Big O
champion
nose.
swordsman, but he's
Yeah.
very well spoken. And then his cousin falls in love with this girl or something like that. And then she likes the way he looks, but he's the one writing the love letters.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And so it's a whole thing. But it was the fighting was amazing. And I did not realize that anyone was fighting like that back then on film. It was ridiculous. And then, but the story was actually pretty good too. But actually, that's a good question I do have for you. Are there any recent action films you've seen where you feel like they've done an excellent job with the framing? Anything, any good examples of the techniques you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of my favorite people working today in that arena is Zhang Yimou, who did Hero and House of Flying Daggers, and most recently in this action category, Shadow. Um, I thought that Shadow was an incredibly well composed movie, and there are some very intriguing fights going on in that film as well. But what he's done to push the medium of action movies into, sort of blurring the line between art film drama and, epic action
Mm.
film. He's done some great work to push both forms further. And so for me, those are, he's one of my go-tos for modern action movies. I also thought that, and I know this is a few years back now, but still has a lasting impact on all of us, I'm sure. The Raid 2,
Yes.
that movie stepped up the game on so many levels that it just made me so excited to see, oh, what's going to happen next now that somebody finally broke through that barrier, of really great choreography and really thoughtful visuals. And I will say, to that point, there's even a class that we teach that has examples from the raid where the director would shoot the scenes in advance with the martial artist just in the in the dojo with just some mats on the ground, and shoot and pick all of his camera angles initially for the fight, and then cut it together himself, and so he could watch how all the cuts would work. And it's just them, they're just wearing their sweats or whatever, and they're not like, nothing fancy, but he just shot it a bunch of different times, did his cuts, and then you watch the end result of the raid 2, and you can play the sequences side by side, and it's all the same shots, all the same cuts. But one of them is high production value, and the other one is, he's just got his little camera and he's out there getting it. So to our point in our earlier discussion about intentionality, that's it, man. The raid 2, super intentional. That's why it's great. So
what did you think about maybe like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon? Because that's probably, in my opinion, the most beautiful martial arts movie I've ever seen. And I know they have the Grand Master and whatever else, but like the story didn't hook me like the dual love story happening in Crouching Tiger. Like I loved I think that's, in my mind, that's probably the most perfect movie with action that I have ever seen.
Really interesting.
Yeah, it is the I would say it's the foundation of modern action films, in the sense that you are there's everything that happened before that movie, and then there's everything now after that movie. You can contextualize it, like I know a lot of film critics historically contextualize it as, okay, this was something that introduces this idea to Americans, and then that drives some of the industry's decisions and in the Hollywood movies that are made. And so there's all that interplay, and that's very fair assessment. But I think that what you're referencing is the quality of the storytelling, and how each element of the film is really operating on that top level. Everything, the costumes are incredible, the locations are incredible, the directing is incredible. There's nothing that doesn't have like the full weight of the whole production behind it at all times. And so when you make something that's that sturdy, it's that strong, you can press on it and it holds up. That's why it lasts for all this time. And I totally agree with you. It's one of my absolute favorites as well.
Was The Matrix prior, or was it after?
I believe they were very much around the same time, if not the same year of release. Crouching Tiger is 2000, and I believe The Matrix is 99.
Okay, that's what I thought. So that is what I loved everything you guys are saying about it. That's what took me out of it. It was because I felt that the traveling, when they would, go across and fly, was a little too much at times. It would drive me nuts. And I'm just like, okay, The Matrix is my baseline for that. And then this is trying to do this, and the art of it is just so beautiful. I love the story. I just I thought they overdid it at times in that piece. That's just me, because I'm a huge Matrix person. So
it's really interesting to hear you say that, because you're such a movement person, and part of what I think might be involved with that is, and I know that Ben's gonna know what I'm talking about here, but like, it's an escalation of palette that comes from a deep understanding of the form. So when you watch a musical, the level you're seeing it on is so much higher than the level, just to use the terminology of a layperson, what they're seeing, they're not seeing all the steps in between. And so I think there are, you talk about things as being an acquired taste, or like when I was a kid, I really only ate chicken nuggets, but now I love a good, cauliflower steak or whatever it is. There are increments of your investment in the genre and in the the entertainment that you're watching. And so as Ben's saying, the wire fu, you go back and you look at the tradition of that and how that's escalated over time. and then you watch it in Crouching Tiger and you go, oh man, they just blew the lid off this thing. This thing was developing for years and it just went. So it almost feels like hitting it, seeing a singer hit a crazy high note. You're just like, that note is a little much. Like, it definitely is a little much. It's very high, but wow, I can't believe they hit that note. It's insane. So it's like that.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And like, because I came up watching like Lord of the Wu-Tang, Kid with a Golden Arm, stuff like that, the Shaw Brothers, they didn't have as much of it, but like Lord of the Wu-Tang was way over the top. Like, it didn't make any sense. But it was fun. And so when I watched Crouching Tiger, I felt like the camera's smooth. It's kung fu, so it's wider shots. It's not Raid. It's not Born Identity. It's designed to be smooth. So all the gliding matches. For me, it matches with the way that the story is being told and all the other elements. Ordinarily, I don't like it. Or I don't get into it in recent movies. I think people do a really weird job with wires. And if anybody else had told a lesser story with all of that wire work, I would have been absolutely irritated. But because I knew what they were doing, I was like, okay, like I'm in for this one. So, but I could clearly see how someone would just be super irritated with it if they're not into that and they don't feel the same way about the rest of the project. So that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, Danielle, the fight choreographer on The Matrix is one of the all-time legends. Yuan Wo-ping is the top level guy. So your taste on that is not off in any way. I mean, that's the highest level of, that's the guy you bring in when you want the absolute best, right? So, your standard for that, like saying The Matrix is your standard for wire work is like saying, I don't know what it's like saying. It's like saying gold is my standard for money or whatever.
Pretty much.
It's just like,
I mean,
the Hope Diamond is my standard.
And I think the Matrix is one of the best action kung fu movies I've seen, because the funny part that it took me a while to learn until like when I started doing stunts and fighting was that it's not fast. It feels fast when you watch it, right?
Yeah.
But it's clean. Like those actors, again, trained really hard to be able to do what they were doing. And you can see it in their performances. Like the dojo fight with Neo and oh my gosh,
Lawrence Fishburne.
Morpheus, man.
Morpheus. So that fight, like that's the one that people normally remember. They do remember Trinity's, crane kick deal, but that moment with those two fighting in that dojo, and I know Kung Fu is like, this fight is not all that complicated, but it's beautiful and it's
exactly right.
Clean, and the form it's so clean. And I think that changed a bunch when it comes to like how people viewed martial arts in movies, especially in America, because I've been watching the Eastern stuff this entire time. I'm watching things like Blade, which goes under the radar for setting a standard also.
You're right.
And black leather, by the way. But so I mean, I was before Matrix. I'm just saying, people often forget they were first with some of that stuff. But you watch American movies, and a lot of times we were just very lazy with the action. And when we saw that movie, like, okay, they're taking this, Wachowskis are taking that very, very seriously. And I appreciated that because, okay, now people know you can make a good action movie. You can take American actors who care, even if they're not necessarily lifelong martial artists, and you can make it look good. And even guys like me will still like it, who are very, very picky about the fighting, will still like it. So they did a fantastic job with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree.
Okay. Is there anything that you're currently working on right now, though, that you're like excited about? Like anything specific besides just the general Film Reframed? Like any projects or anything upcoming in Film Reframed that you're really, really excited about?
Yeah, we're really looking forward to. We got two projects in development right now, and one that excites me personally is an intensive workshop on understanding color. So when we talk about color in movies, I think a lot of people are a little bit intimidated by the concept of making a very colorful movie, especially within the confines of, the modern aesthetic that we're seeing. in movies is kind of desaturated, harmonized. And I can even get into it a little bit, but just to say that, the modern look of movies stems from a couple different things, but one of them is the fact that we shoot everything with as much preservation of visual data as possible. Now we shoot in that raw format that, keeps everything very low contrast and low color. And that's our baseline of where we start. So number one, people are becoming familiarized with that part of their footage first, and they're starting to internalize that as the baseline. And then the second thing is when you do that, it really, they do that so you have a lot of leverage in post-production with the color grade so that you can adjust colors the way that you want it. But what that does is that removes the amount of intentionality you're putting into the colors in pre-production and production. So what we often see is movies that don't particularly work in the raw footage, the way that it's shot, that the colors aren't quite right. We're going in post and we're harmonizing those colors by making adjustments, but also by desaturating it, because if you desaturate an image, the colors clash less and they harmonize. But what you're losing there is the vibrance and saturation that makes a really compelling image. If you think of like a Wes Anderson movie or like Grand Budapest, you're like, the colors are just hitting me. It's because the colors are all there for real. The colors are there in the movie. And so that's what our intensive is going to be discussing, is how do you get your head around color so that you don't have to be afraid of making those irreversible decisions in pre-production and production. And you can then really tell a story that's vibrant and maybe breaks the plateau of all of these sort of desaturated films.
One of my favorite films, by the way, Grand Budapest Hotel. Love that.
It's beautiful.
It's one of the movies I watched because of that reason.
Because of what?
Because of the color. Because I've heard people say, like, watch this movie because of the way that the prop work or the staging or the camera, lighting. Grand Budapest has come up a number of times because of the color and how intentional the color choices are.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, because it's something that I'm not going to say I struggle with, but sometimes, like, in the rush to do other things, I overlook something like that, which is like, it's like giving up a tool out of your belt. You know what I mean?
You need me on set more, Ben, because I love the artistry of
color
and the locations and all of that composition. I just adore that. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we all need a Danielle on our team. Somebody looking out for that.
You do. Everybody out there needs a Danielle.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly
Roman
agree.
said it.
I agree to that. Absolutely.
All right, Roman, you're my new best friend, just to let you know.
Yeah, that's it. I'm your hype man.
You are my hype man.
What do you need?
Exactly.
So
I got your back too, by the way.
No, cool. So is there, I think we already kind of went over your long-term goals with Film Reframed and what you're trying to accomplish with your organization. I just think that's really, really cool that a lot of us, like Danielle, I didn't go to film school either. And I have smatterings of trainings in different things, right? But I didn't go. I don't have a bachelor's from UT from the film department. I didn't have time to go do that. I got into film a little later, and by the time I got in, I was like, well, let's just do it. Let's just buy stuff and fight and kick things and fall and record stuff. So what I like about courses like yours is that I'll come back and see something. I'm like, oh, there's a nugget that I missed, because in a formal education, there's a progression. And there's a list of things, like checklists that they're going through that you learn. Well, when you learn on the fly, you might get really good at something, but that doesn't mean that you took a class on color theory. You know what I mean? Like you didn't, there's things you just skip and you do because it's the way other people are doing it. And a lot of times, if you're just emulating what other people are doing, you can't leave your mark, because that's not even really self-expression. You're just doing it because that's the way that it's done. You don't understand why it's being done that way. So there's a bunch of things that when you talk to people who do, like I hear trainings on people who did like film, like actual film, of which I have very little interest in being involved in, to be honest with you, after hearing what all that takes. And there's processes that are left over from that part of filmmaking that don't really serve us, some of us now, but we wouldn't know because we don't know why we're doing it. We're just copying what everybody's been doing for 60 years. So I think people can get a lot of value from taking courses like yours and shoring up some of those areas where maybe we skipped a step or two, skipped a progression. And now, we can have a better understanding of how to put our vision on screen and express ourselves through that vision.
Yeah, I think you put that really well because, even to just track what you said about how we're all out here maybe emulating techniques that people who shot on film were doing, but that serve no practical purpose now, but we're still doing it because we saw someone else do it. That's how we learned things as kids. We would watch an adult do something. We go, oh, I'll do that because that's what I'm trying to learn how to exist in this society, in this culture. That's how everybody learns. But when you lose sight of the intentionality behind what you're doing or why you're emulating somebody, especially as an adult who can, kind of focus their decisions in a impactful way, then you get off track. And Film Reframed, we're here to give you those foundational elements of learning so that you can express yourself in your own voice. You're not watching our courses and then emulating what we do. We're teaching you why this works in some cases, why this works on a subconscious, subliminal, unexplainable level. We're teaching you how these things we've scientifically tracked. If you do this, this is what happens, and this is, a foundation of information that's been available to us for hundreds of years from artists in all mediums who've been trying and testing these things over time. So we're really here to synthesize that whole world of information that is maybe very hard to even know where to start finding it. And we're here to bring it to you in a way that makes it actionable and makes it at the root of your decision. So you can always check back in with yourself and say, why am I doing this? And to your point, Ben, if you see somebody doing something and you go, oh, maybe I need to do it that way. Maybe my film needs to be desaturated because that's what everybody seems to be doing. You can check back in with yourself and go, wait, what's the foundation of this endeavor? And maybe the foundation is, I want to make someone feel excited. And you go, okay, does desaturate line up with excited? And if the answer is no, then you consciously decide, I'm going to pursue maybe a more colorful movie. And then you can go, it's the kind of thing when you buy a car and then you start to notice everybody else who has that car, but you never noticed before, or like you're thinking of buying a car and then you're like, hey, there's that Jeep. Hey, there's that Jeep. Yeah. Once you just get it in your head, you have the thought and you have some kind of intention there, you start to see it being reinforced around you and you start to notice. It's not like it's new. It's not like those cars magically sprung up because I was considering buying a Jeep. It's just that now that I have an awareness and I'm attuned to it, now I'm seeing a lot of them. And so that's what we're trying to do filmically, is we're trying to make you aware of these core concepts so that you can start to see them in everything else. And then you can follow those paths that align most with your intention. So again, if it's color and all the movies you're seeing are desaturated right now, if you're aligned with the intention of color, you start to see the ones that aren't that way. There are always exceptions. And there are incredible examples through the history of film where color is so vibrant and they're regarded as some of the best films. So it's easy to stay trapped in a bubble of just who's around you if you don't have that core. Right. And so we're looking to help you build your core like an athlete, like a fighter, build your core, get the core muscles together. Right. It all starts from there.
Get that six pack working. I have a question for you. So is there a community that's attached to your program? So conversations that can keep going, or inquiries, or to help each other, is that also involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little backstory is we started right at the beginning of the pandemic because Caviar Productions was looking to create some online learning opportunities for filmmakers who had recently been displaced from their work when the coronavirus first hit, and everybody was like, whoa, we're off productions, nothing's happening. So they brought together a variety of instructors, including me, film professionals, people that weren't, trained instructors, just, people in the industry to teach to their fellow filmmakers. And so when that started, we had hundreds of filmmakers around the world come listen to the webinar. And when I was speaking about composition, we had hundreds of people. We had people in Brussels and Spain and Mexico, all these different places, and messaging and saying, "Oh, I love this. I want to learn more about this. Will you put on more? Will you do more?" And so when the Caviar series ended, that's when we decided to start this business. We said, we have so many people reaching out for more information that we think that this is our opportunity to give something of value to our community, our global filmmaking community. And since that's where we started, that's how we've continued to develop, is how do we keep all of these filmmakers in touch and learning and growing together. So we have our Instagram page where we have people commenting on posts. And I mean, if you see the amount of DMs that we have between me and all of our students around the world, I end every class by saying, if you have any questions or you just want to talk movies, send me an email at this, send me a DM here, because we love to foster that conversation. And I'm personally now friends with people all over the world that I would have never known, because that's how we view this community. And when we do the intensives, when we do the weekend live webinars, everybody who joins in the call, it looks like this. It looks like us here with our videos, and we're here learning. And I incorporate people into the lessons. I ask them, what are you working on? How can we apply this technique to something you're doing? And then everybody gets to learn based on their particular use case of what they want to do. And so it just builds. We even had a conversation about, representation in film, where it just came up in this director's workshop naturally. That's what people were interested in, is how do you respect, different people's perspectives when you're making a movie? How do you involve the right people?
Yeah.
And at that point, it was no longer me teaching the class, but the class teaching itself, people jumping in, talking to each other. And again, you're getting that world perspective because it is global, because it's online. So you have people from all over. And, I think that's the heart of the community that we have at Film Reframed, is people who are so passionate about this stuff that they are very open to sharing and listening. And I think that's, continued with
Thank
us
you
to
for
now.
sharing that. I appreciate that.
That's
Yeah,
really
of course.
cool, man. So we're winding down right now, but if you had to give, let's say, some quick hits, like one or two things that, like, I got 5 minutes with a brand new filmmaker. Here's some quick tips to make your stuff not suck real bad. What would you say?
Wow, that's a great question. That's a great question.
It's an interesting way we put it too.
Yeah, no, that's really funny. One of the first things I would say is, when you're approaching something, don't think of it as a movie. Think of it as something that you want to express. If you were going to tell your movie as a story to your friend to make them laugh while you're hanging out together, what parts of the story would you include and what parts would you leave out? If you were trying to write your movie as a song, how loud would the music get at a certain point, or when would you really punch the high note? Think of your movie not as a movie, but as an expression of what you're trying to share with somebody. And when you can contextualize it in all the different ways you would maybe express that, if you drew someone a picture, if you spoke to them, if you, again, made it as a song, whatever, then you can understand what really matters about what you're trying to say. And getting grounded in that part of what you're doing, if you can just understand what's important about what you're trying to do, your intuition will guide you through a lot of the hard decisions that are maybe impossible to prepare for when you're not trained through experience, right? So your question is, to a new filmmaker or somebody who's just like starting out and they're young, I can't say go get 2 decades worth of experience, because that comes with time, and that's what you're going to get. You're going to naturally get there because you're pursuing what you're doing, at all times. So you're going to gain that. I don't have to tell you to get that. That you're going to have to actually make things and actually talk to people and actually get involved with people So that part you already have. But I would say just getting clear on the intention of what you're trying to share is probably the, it's the secret weapon, right? It's what's gonna hold you through all of the varying opinions you're gonna hear throughout the course of your career, right? The first person you meet who tells you about movies, they might say, what if it's me? Like, what if you hear me first, right?
Mhm.
I have valuable things to share, but maybe that's not the thing that resonates with your heart. Maybe your journey is, for Ben, maybe it was like, I saw the choreography from Darth Maul and I was like, that's it, I'm in, I got to go harder. And so, how are you going to find the thing that really gets you on your track if you don't understand what's driving you here? And so that's like, that's the only advice I can even think to give is just, honing here so that it will just guide you, then you don't have to do all that work all the time of, wondering, oh, is he right? Is he right? You get this figured out.
That is good, especially as a director, especially someone who's putting something together. It's like for Danielle, when you're talking about, you're great with color. Well, it could be great if I had no opinion and you came in and did everything for me. That's fine, but we may have a discordant view. And that's my fault if I'm the director and I bring you on and I don't know what I really want and what part of what you're suggesting matches with my actual vision. So no, that's actually really, really good what you're saying. And it's funny because we're working on a fantasy project right now, and it's been very educational for me because I've got to do a number of different things. And even on this one, I have to hire a director because I have to be in it. So I can't direct it. But in the conversations with the director about what I saw and are we in alignment with what I kind of thought about the project, it's been very revealing because one of the things that stood out is that when I talk to people about that project, the most exciting part is no longer the magic or the sword play or whatever. It was like these plots that I didn't have even in mind when I first wrote the movie or started writing the project. It's now I'm talking about the political intrigue and the clashing of different ideas and how these guys represent this. And this group is representing freedom in this way, but there's flaws because see that person and how these two are smashing together. And it's interesting because my wife was actually telling me she was talking to someone about the project, and that's the part that they cared about. It's like, yeah, the spectacle is going to pull you in with the magic and freaking shadow warrior wave power or whatever the crap he's going to be doing. But what's actually gonna hold you is just like Game of Thrones. It's like what's holding you is the intrigue of how do these pieces come together? Where is this character going to take it? Ooh, well, what about this guy? Unfortunately, HBO and those shows tend to also hold your attention with gratuitous sex scenes in the first 6 episodes. But beyond that part, normally as the story is very good, is how they continue to hold you past season number 1. So it's interesting that you say that, and it just reminded me of those conversations that I've been recently having. So
yeah, it's very interesting to hear you say that because it relates back to when you asked me the question, who am I really enjoying in action cinema these days? And I said Zhang Yimou. He has a quote that says basically there's no action in his movies that aren't motivated by an inevitable conflict between the characters. So the only time he has a fight scene in his movie is when the characters, the trajectory they're on has no choice but to eventually end up clashing with each other. So there's not fights for the sake of spectacle. Yeah, it's the intentionality of knowing, okay, because of this character's values and because of his situation and because of his life's background and this character and because of her background and because of where she is in this moment, there's going to be a moment where their paths have no choice but to connect. And if their values pose in that way, then it's going to manifest in a physical fight.
Stark and Cap.
That's what motivates that.
Iron Man and Captain America.
Yep, and that goes, for the actor side of me. That's also the the tools that you use within the story, whatever that is, if it's a cigarette, if it's the certain type of knife, what's the story attached, what's the intentionality with those. I like all of that all together, that whole composition of everything. So
that is nice.
Yeah.
Well, I got some good snippets. We're gonna make some good little cuts out of this one because there's some.
Yeah, and I have to say this real fast. I know I'm interrupting you, Ben, but I've never heard anybody say use a song and take that, because I'm big into music, and I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. Yes, I love that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, the real core of that message is take whatever it is that, if you can just take yourself out of that, focus mindset of film, and understand like where everything in your life, even go for a walk. And for me, I go for a walk in my neighborhood and I see some crows in a tree and I see the way they're talking to each other. And I just think, oh man, that's so interesting. Like that dynamic that they have, like I could see that as a character dynamic for something I'm working on, or whatever. It's just, you can see it in everything once you, break out of that sort of single-minded focus of just film. And so for you, if it's a song that resonates, awesome. That's all I wanted to share.
Yeah, that is awesome.
And I wrote a children's book, just like what you just said, just because I saw that happening. I wrote a children's book. Yeah. So cool beans.
No, that's actually all the questions I had for today. Was there anything we missed that you wanted to go over, Roman, or mention, or?
No, I just think that maybe earlier in the message, we talked about something about how Film Reframed helps audiences' experience of a movie. And while I think that the answer that I gave is accurate, I also was finding myself being distracted by something that was happening off camera over here, and I just felt like I didn't have my head totally on. So if I could maybe take another pass at
go for it,
that, and then you can cut that together with the question or whatever.
No, go ahead. Look, we're just we're still in the interview, so they're going to see it all.
Great. Well, yeah. So it's something that I feel very passionately about. So that's why I wanted to make sure that the answer is very clear and direct. The idea is fairly simple, which is when you think of human psychology, they say that, and I won't quote an exact percentage, but they say that the vast majority of communication between humans happens non-verbally. So what you say is only a very small part of what people understand. And the rest is all of the contextual information they have, both about how they know the world works through their perspective, and also what they know about you as a person, and how they've interacted with you before. And so when you're making a movie, we're seeing everything that everybody is doing. And this is a testament to the actors involved, right? But you're seeing how people's body language interacts with each other. You're seeing a pattern of behavior across the span of a movie of how a character is acting. So if you see a character be mean and kick a dog 5 times in the movie, when you see a dog later, you're already worried for that dog because, that's been established somebody else, right? So there's so much potential for movies to communicate non-verbally and to do it in a way that resonates with people beyond their conscious understanding. That's what gives you that, your heart beating fast in the movie, or you start to choke up and feel sad. It's the summation of all of these small decisions to give you this visual information over the course of the film. And so what we do at Film Reframed is we take examples directly from those movies, and then we draw on top of them exactly what elements of each frame are causing those kinds of responses in your audience, and how the parts equal a much larger sum. So we take it from something that is often discussed as a very esoteric or just intangible thing. Oh, some filmmakers just have the talent, or some, they just have this inherent understanding. We take these things that people don't put words to because it is very complex, and we, instead of just articulating it with our vocabulary, we show you with an active drawing where it's happening. And that kind of learning helps it get into your internal decision-making process, so that when you do make a movie for people to view, the emotional result that they get from your movie benefits from all that work you did to train early on. And so I'd say in particular, respect to the Austin Action Fest, when it comes to action sequences, right, you do all this training ahead of time. You train for months about the actual sequence. You train your own strength. You've been maybe doing it your whole life. All that training is so that for that 3 minutes on film, people get this transcendent experience of a perfectly clean fight, And so for filmmakers, Film Reframed is kind of that training. That's the martial arts dojo for filmmakers, is come to Film Reframed, get your core strength, and then show up on the day, and that you can be confident in what you want to do on set.
That's perfect.
Beautiful.
That's going in a clip.
Roman, can you tell people where they can find you in our lovely World Wide Web?
Absolutely. So the best way to connect is to jump on Instagram at Film Reframed. You can send me a DM, even if you've never introduced yourself before, and just say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm here, I want to know more. How do I get involved? And also, you can send us an email at hello@filmreframed.com. Additionally, the main hub for everything that we do here, to see the new courses, to see, every month we have new intensive up on the site, and we start a new cycle of our core classes, our essentials, and our exploring. All of that is at filmreframed.com. So Google us, Film Reframed. That's how you connect.
Everybody check Roman out and
Yes.
And sign up for the classes. You will not be disappointed. Roman, I would love for you, we're going to venture out pretty soon to Clubhouse. And I would love for you to come on to Clubhouse with us and be on stage and moderate a room with us and answer questions and invite your crew that's all over the world to come and get involved in the learning and just have a big party on Clubhouse of education. If you're up for that, when we step into that arena, if you're up for it. So
yeah, that sounds fun. Really, again, it's aligning with the intention. My intention is to share this useful information with as many people as possible. And you guys seem to be doing great work, and I love that each of your personal journeys has led you to this kind of intersection of how you work together and how you share information about movies. So I'm very happy to be part of that in whatever way that looks like, whether it's on Clubhouse or in person after all this coronavirus stuff's going on, or whatever it is.
Oh well, that too.
No, awesome.
Yeah, wonderful.
Actually, I think it might be cool to have a conversation about maybe Roman doing a class or something for the upcoming festival, be it pre-recorded or live. If you like that idea, put some notes in the comments or put some comments below when you guys see this, and we'll see if we can con them into doing that. So on that note, guys, I think that's about it. It's pretty much it for me. Roman, appreciate you so much for coming out and chatting with us today. I have learned a ton, as I often do. He had a silky smooth delivery, right? I don't know what kind of microphone that is. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
My mic game now.
This is just right here. It's just this little thing.
Organic. It's all organics, right? So no, really, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. I know you got plenty of other places you could be. So we appreciate you coming and sharing all the information with our little clan of Filmmakers International. And we look forward to chatting with you in the future.
That sounds great. Thank you guys so much. It was a real pleasure. Genuinely.
Thank you, Roman.
Awesome. With that, catch you guys with the next one.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Austin Action Fest podcast.